Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think Torquay is something that you eat with mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. And now, of course, turkey is what you eat with mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. Torquay, which is what we're going to talk about on today's show, is a city in the southwestern tip of England. Looking it up a bit here, Torquay's name originates from being the key of the ancient village of Torry. In turn, Torry takes its name from the Tor, the extensively quarried remains of which could be seen by the town's Lymington Road, thus giving the original name of Torquay, then Torquay, Torquay, and Torquay, before finally joining the words together to Torquay. And if you're wondering why we're giving all that history, it's because today we're going to be talking to Dave Saunders, who is the broadcaster color analyst for the Tulsa Roughnecks, but actually originates from Exeter, which is a city that's just a little bit north of Torquay on the southern tip of England. So we're going to talk about not only the Tulsa Roughnecks, but also a bit about Torquay United and his beloved Exeter City today in an interview where Darren Woodhead is also going to join me. My name is Phil Kennedy, and thank you again for joining us on Across the Pitch. Let's welcome Dave and Darren and get things started here. Good morning or afternoon, depending on which side of the pond you're on. We have a special edition of Across the Pitch. It's one of our Sunday conversations. Darren Woodhead is joining me here today, and we're going to be talking with Dave Saunders, who is a freelance broadcaster, best known here in the States for his work with the Tulsa Roughnecks. He's also a big-time Exeter City supporter and does some freelance work with the BBC. We're really excited to have him on the show today. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, guys. But a pleasure to be here and talking to you guys.
I know that you and Darren have been talking for a few months now because it was, I want to say it was back at the beginning of June when the Tulsa Roughnecks traveled here to Phoenix. And Darren kind of at that point said, I remember the old Roughnecks back in the 80s, and there were some players from England that went over there. I think I'm going to start following the Roughnecks, and I know that he reached out to you shortly after that, and you guys have been talking a little bit about what's going on with Tulsa, who actually did. They played a game against Phoenix last night, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But Dave, start off by telling us a little bit about the broadcast work that you do both over here and in England.
Yeah, well, I've been in Tulsa now for coming up 6 years. I'm actually a teacher and a soccer coach. For those of you listening in England, that's football, of course. But so a few years ago, I played the game myself and was coaching at high school level and so on. And then I got in touch with the local BBC, did a few rugby games actually first, if my memory serves, and then really got the sort of dream job of commentating on that's play-by-play on my own beloved Exeter City. But also for you Accrington Stanley fans, probably more familiar in recent years. I know you're in League One now, and congratulations on that, by the way. But with Torquay United. So I did a lot of stuff with Torquay United as well. So coming to the States, I got in touch with a very nice guy called Brian Carroll, who was at the time the general manager for the Tulsa Roughnecks. And if you have the English voice, shall we say, in the States, in my experience, they like you to be the summarizer, the colour, because you're the so-called expert with the English voice, which isn't always true. So I actually wasn't there for the game last night, which I know we want to talk about. So somebody else stepped in for me. But there's a very, very fine gentleman who's become a really good friend of mine, is Jeremy Poplin, and he is actually a sports broadcaster, and he knows his football inside out. He's the play-by-play, and I've been for the last 4 years since the Roughnecks have been in the USL, the summariser, and it's great fun. I always enjoy it, win, lose or draw. I always enjoy doing that, and involved with broadcasting this beautiful game.
When I first got introduced to Phil and Aaron, they're obviously big Phoenix Rising fans, so I thought it'd be a little bit of fun to follow another team in the US. Well, there was a bit of downtime with Accrington's off season, so I picked Tulsa Roughnecks due to the fact that I remember the players going over in the 80s, David McCreary, etc. It just stood out for me for some reason, the name when I was a kid. But they've been struggling of late, haven't they, Tulsa?
They have. It's been, to be honest, it's been a bit of a struggle from the beginning. I got in the top 8. You have to be in the top 8, top 10 this year actually, but top 8 in recent years in the USL. And the Roughnecks did that. But really, it's been difficult. A lot of people do talk about the old times. There's a guy that I met who some of you will know if you're listening in, as I said, from England, Steve Earle, who in my opinion was probably one of the best players that never really played for England on a regular basis. He played for Leicester City and for Fulham. Played with the great George Best and Rodney Marsh in that team when they were coming to the end of their careers. And I met Steve. In fact, I got to do the play-by-play for a Roughnecks game, and we brought Steve in as my summariser, and it's great fun. And he talks very fondly about the old Roughnecks team, which a lot of people seem to have gone to see. They were getting like 20,000 into this stadium. And I speak to people now, and I say, well, why didn't you come and see the Roughnecks now? Oh, we didn't know Tulsa had a team, and it's slowly trying to get through to people that there is a team in Tulsa called the Tulsa Roughnecks.
Yeah, what size crowds are the Roughnecks getting, Dave?
Well, I mean, not more than 2,000. Probably that's probably a lie. I mean, I think with Phoenix, because Phoenix is always a draw to people. It's more like 2.5. They have had 3,000 there. It's actually the game is played in the Tulsa Drillers baseball stadium.
I've noticed that.
So it's converted, which again for British football fans it is a difficult concept, but they do an amazing job putting the turf down on the infield and making it, it's not ideal by any means, but they do a fantastic job.
Yeah, Phil asked me if there was anything similar in the UK if we play football on a cricket pitch, and I just can't imagine that.
Well, I my good man,
Northampton Town, remember that?
Well, there you go. I was going to say, I didn't want to be disrespectful to your age, but I do remember
no.
Northampton Town.
Yeah,
certainly
I remember
did
that.
it. Yeah, but I can't think of any other ones really.
One thing that you did mention that I just want to kind of circle back to, because I know this is something that Darren and I have discussed quite a bit, is how you mentioned the difference between the play-by-play guy and the color analyst. Play-by-play guy is going to be the guy announcing the action that's happening off the field, and then your color analyst is going to be the guy who is kind of filling in the different stats and things like that in the interim. Darren said apparently that announcer isn't a term that's used very often in England, where we're over here in the States, we refer to announcers or an announcing team, and then an announcing team would be that play-by-play and color analyst.
Yeah, I mean, when I worked for the BBC, I was always called the commentator. And then I would have somebody next to me who was the summariser. I quickly learned that it is play-by-play, which is the commentator. That's my good friend Jeremy Poplin, who does a fantastic job. And he's always good on his stats and everything. And then really the summariser, or the style that I've liked to do it, is to talk about formations. Is it a 4-4-2? Is it a 3-5-2? Is it a 4-2-3-1? And just sort of bring in different aspects. Sometimes I will bring in, the likeness of a striker, for example, to somebody that people would know worldwide. And we've generally been well received and tried to be informative. And one of the things that I always think is good is for any top professional commentators of any sport, I think is to, without being patronizing, tell people about, if you followed the game all your life, you obviously know why the board is held up when there's extra, the injury time comes up. But some people don't know that. And we've had a few emails come in saying thank you to your commentators for explaining that very simple thing, the number of substitutions. And it's things that sometimes we who followed the game all our lives overlook. And so I think I try to have that in mind when I do the summarising role as well. It's been different for me because, as I said, in England, I was always used to being the commentator, the play-by-play. Now I'm in a different role. I'm the summariser. But it's great. I love and adore both of them.
That's an important point that you make, because there's always going to be somebody that's watching for the first time, and being able to connect with that person that's watching for the first time, and also being able to bring something to that person who's been watching all their lives, that's the mark of a great analyst to me.
Well, and the other thing that Jeremy Poplin and I do as well is we always look up the local pub, in inverted commas, of the team that the Tulsa Roughnecks are playing, and we try to say, well, they'll be celebrating that goal down at the Dog and Duck or whatever in San Diego, or wherever we're playing. So we try to do that as well, because obviously we've already talked probably off mic about the distance between the teams in the USL, and so it's important to bring those people into Tulsa, Oklahoma, and if you're watching from Phoenix, you want to know something about the local side of things, and we like to know where are people going to be tuning into this broadcast, and you're in downtown Oklahoma, if you get my drift.
Yeah. So, Dave, do you keep an eye on UK football, English football while you're over there?
Well,
How
I
easy
do.
is that?
I do. It's very easy. I'll nail my colours to the mast. I'm a big Arsenal fan. We have.
You'll be popular with Phil and Aaron then.
I thought I saw that on somebody's bio. Yeah, we've got the Sooner Gooners. Now, if you're an Arsenal fan, you know that Gunners becomes Gooners, and it happens to rhyme with Sooners, and of course the Sooners are is the history of Oklahoma. So it's perfect. So there's a pub called the George's Pub in Jinx, Tulsa, and I'll go there sometimes and watch the game with the other Arsenal fans. But of course, if you live in the States, you probably get to see more live football than if you live in England. So I'll get up in with the 6-hour swing at Arsenal might be playing the early game in England, so 6 a.m. And then watch, maybe 2 or 3 games, and I can still get my honeydew list done for my wife before, before the midday is broken. But I'm also a very big Exeter City fan, having grown up in the area, and so I have something called iFollow, $140.
Love iFollow.
One-off payment. There you go. And so again, I can have my beloved BBC Radio Devon commentary they have a single camera, which is fine, and they've improved it, and I can watch every home and away league game for Exeter City. So the answer to your question is, yes, I'm very much know all there is to know about the UK soccer and keep up with it.
Yeah, so I've noticed you've been to a friendly game this week. You've been to watch Exeter and Torquay, I believe.
I did. Have you been to Plainmoor with Accrington?
Oh, I have not. I was in Torquay 2 weeks ago, but I haven't been to the football ground, no. Right.
Of course, they're doing well to come back, actually. I don't know if you know Gary Johnson, former Bristol City Yeovil manager, doing a fantastic job, because, of course, they fell out of League Two. Then they went down again, and they were in the Southern League. So now they're back up into
Yeah,
just
National
below
League
League Two.
Conference. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exeter won 2-1. It was definitely a pre-season friendly, but it is for anybody not familiar with Devon. It is only, I'd say, 18 miles between Exeter and Torquay, so they're old rivals. But of course, they're not going to be playing each other in the league because Exeter City will be playing in League Two this season.
Yes, and I think Exeter. Am I right in saying that Exeter have a rivalry with Plymouth as well?
That's the big rivalry. That's more of the. I don't like to use the word hatred, but it's a bit
I have
more.
noticed that it's quite tasty.
Yes, bit tasty, more tasty than Torquay. I think Exeter and Torquay really have always kind of befriended each other, and Torquay's always been a little bit of the poor relation, a little bit to Exeter. It's a smaller place, and I know when Torquay were going through financial troubles, they arranged a friendly, and the Exeter fans got some money together and so on. So that's been more friendly. And of course, I just wanted to drop in for Accrington stands that Billy Key spent many a good season down at Torquay United, and I had the privilege of commentating on quite a few of his goals for Torquay. I want to say 2011. Good player.
Very good players, Billy. We're hoping to get him back. There's a little bit of controversy. He hasn't come back for pre-season training for various reasons. So I think he's got some personal issues, but we're really hoping, fingers crossed, he comes back because he's a massive favourite at our club. Yeah.
Yes, I hope so too. I wish him all the best.
I've noticed the manager at Exeter. He's an interesting character, isn't he, Matty Taylor? He's from this neck of the woods, actually. He's from Lancashire.
Right.
Now I noticed he started his career as a goalkeeper in non-league around here. Went to university, back to university, and then he emerged as a centre-back later on. So there's not many people with that story, is there?
There aren't many people with that story, and I can tell you that the reason why that kind of happened was he was at Bath University, and he met Paul Tisdale. Now, Paul Tisdale was, after Sir Alex Ferguson, was the longest-serving manager, behind Arsene Wenger, after Sir Alex retired, of any league club. I mean, he was at Exeter.
He's a fantastic manager.
2006. Yeah, and he's now gone to MK Dons. It was a little bit sour the way that the fans and him parted ways, but Matt Taylor was his number two.
Right.
And played in recent years for Exeter, but that's how it all started. Their relationship at Bath University, and he is a thoroughly nice man. He is a young manager. He's putting together a totally different team post Tisdale era. It's never easy going into a club when someone's been there for so long, as you know. And we'll see how it pans out this season.
Yeah, we had the same situation when John Coleman left. He went to Rochdale, and I think we'd had 14, 15 years at Accrington, something like that. And then the people who came in all found it difficult, really, to step into his shoes until he came back. Yeah, it's difficult. Right. Well, we've seen it at Manchester United, haven't we?
Yes,
just how difficult it is.
Difficult.
And it's the same at a lower level. It's just exactly the same. When somebody's been right at the helm for so long, it's difficult.
Yes. It really is. It really is, and people do underestimate it. And I think he did a great job. It was his first season last season, and Exeter just missed out of the playoffs. They finished 8th, and it was top 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, isn't it? So they finished 7th, just outside the playoffs. But we were okay with that with Exeter. And this season, push for the playoffs because Exeter are quite unique in that we've been to Wembley 3 times now in playoff finals. So Wembley's kind of somewhere we're familiar with.
Right, it might be a future team of the month there to follow Exeter City.
Yeah, I think that definitely could be. Now, Exeter City, I know they finished 9th in the table League 2 last year, so they did finish top half. Do you think that Exeter could be looking at a playoff promotion spot this year?
Yes and no. I mean, it's a little bit early to say. I did see them yesterday, in the pre-season friendly. It all starts next week, home to Macclesfield. Sol Campbell comes to Devon with his Macclesfield team, who just about survived.
Yeah,
I
they
think on the last day to stay up.
just made it last year.
They did, didn't they? They did. So we'll see. Exeter are always in that top 10, and it's great fun when it gets to the playoffs. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to discuss that in any way. Promotion, relegation, obviously something that hasn't really come to the States yet. Maybe that's in the future. But,
that's actually something
we
cover pretty. We actually cover pretty in depth on League One and League Two during the English season, and we did have some articles, and I actually I will take credit at my article last year. I did predict Macclesfield hanging on and making it in. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, promotion and relegation is certainly one of the reasons that we actually started this show, because when we started the show, what our goal was to try to explain the European aspects of football to American fans, things like promotion, relegation, Champions League, things like that. And now Darren has gotten on board and kind of taken an interest on what's going on over here in the States. And it's become very, very interesting because everything is, we have certain people over here in the States that are listening, asking questions about England. And then, somebody like Darren saying, hey, what's going on with the Tulsa Roughnecks?
Yeah, and it's just for me the concept of Phoenix Rising, the season they've had, and not to have a promotion at the end of it. From an English perspective, it's just it's difficult to get your head around, Dave.
It is, and you're absolutely right. And Phoenix Rising are the team that we all want to be in the USL. I mean, there is an excitement. I was gutted to have missed the game because I'm in England. And I missed yesterday's game with Phoenix Rising. And, when Didier Drogba came last year, I think I was in England again. So they are the team that everybody aspires to be. And, I know that the infrastructure has got to be different in the States at the moment. And we all know, as Accrington fans and as Exeter fans, it's exciting when Exeter City beats Huddersfield 2-1 a few years ago to stay just above the line, to stay in League One. Exeter City have always been a conference side or a League Two side as long as I've been alive, and they got this promotion to League One. I think we had one season there. We finished, and Matt Taylor, the manager, actually played in that game. I remember interviewing him at the final whistle, and I made the mistake of saying, Matt, congratulations on the promotion. And all it was they'd beaten Huddersfield 2-1 a few years ago and stayed above the dreaded relegation line. And it's fantastic. And the place, it was euphoria. It was like they won the league. Of course, then you when you get that relegation, I was there, stood on in a 9,500 crowd when Exeter beat Southend 1-0, but they still got relegated by virtue of Swansea beating Hull 4-2. See, he knows all his stats because it was an amazing day. And Exeter got relegated into the conference, and it was the worst day of my life. A football fan, but then as we know, things evolve again, and football moves on very, very quickly. It's great, it's terrible, but that it does provide a lot of excitement. And I think one of the other things that has really helped English football, and you might help me here and how long it's been, but the playoffs, I think that's been a fantastic addition because it keeps so many more teams involved.
Yeah, I mean, probably 20 years, I'd say, off the top of my head. But, something right around that mark. And it's interesting with promotion relegation as well, just how quickly teams fly through the divisions one way or another, really, isn't it? It is. Like what you said about Torquay, they drop out of the league, and then next news, they're in the league below. And we've seen it in the north with Stockport County and York City. They're quite decent-sized clubs, and all of a sudden they're nowhere. And vice versa. We came through the divisions in non-league. Fleetwood did, Burton Albion, and these kind of teams, and they're flying through the divisions the other way. It makes it interesting.
It makes it interesting. It makes you realise that you need, these wonderful people who work so hard for these clubs behind the scenes, not just the players and the managers, of course, but the people that, when the manager gets sacked or moves on, they're still the people that have been there all their lives and will be. So, I know a lot of good people at Exeter City who, managers come and go, players come and go, but they spend their lives painting the walls of the dressing rooms and so on, and, just giving of their time voluntarily and hoping to keep your football club going. And, I wouldn't say that we're not ambitious at Exeter, but I'm always glad when Exeter have another season in League Two, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with, myself and Phil spoke the other night when we joke about Tulsa Roughnecks and the results they've had, etc. But, for the 1,000 to 2,000 people that are turning up and they're not winning week after week, it's, it's testament to their perseverance as well, isn't it? That they're keeping going with it. And, I have a lot of admiration for clubs who are struggling, because I've been there with Accrington, the bottom of the division, and you're trudging away every week and you've lost, and it's difficult.
It's very difficult. And again, I say, and you're right, those fans that stick through it thick and thin. And then people like a good friend of mine, a Welshman, played youth at Shrewsbury. His name is Wayne Farmer. He's now the general manager. And Wayne is such a fantastic guy. And, when the results don't go for you, he feels it more than anyone. And yet, he's still putting on things for the club. He's tweeting things out. We try to have fun things, going on to keep things going. And it's such a difficult job, but he does it so well. And the owners I know very well, Dave Hibbert and Barry Williams, and they want Tulsa to do so well. Mike Ensian is the coach, and Mike has come up through youth football in Tulsa, so he knows a lot of local contacts. And when people really get to know the history and the infrastructure in place, you so much want results to go for you, because these guys put in so many hours and are so passionate about the game.
Yeah, people don't always see that, do they, from the outside?
No, they don't.
Yeah, Tulsa really is one of those teams where you just really want to root for them. Everything having to do with the history, an independent club that, especially being in an area like Tulsa, obviously you have the Drillers, but there's not a lot of other sports franchises where I really see Tulsa as a market that could be a big soccer market in the U.S. if the Roughnecks were able to string a few good years together.
I agree with you. I'm fairly new, as I said, 6 years there, but it's a fanatical soccer city. And if you look at those stats they produced, for example, with the recent congratulations, by the way, to the U.S. women's team, fantastic in the World Cup. And they were sort of, I don't know, third or fourth best populated city for viewership to that. So it's a question of converting some of those people into, hey, come along and see a live game, albeit at the baseball stadium, and get behind your local team. The other thing is maintaining, keeping players there. I mean, your own Zach Lubin, who played in goal.
Yes.
Last night, played for the Roughnecks. Thoroughly nice young man. I got to know Zach pretty well. Joey Calistri came from the Chicago Fire on loan. So, the Roughnecks have had some good players come on through. But and I think this is where I would say the main difference is. We all know that, I'm sure Accrington have got you players like, I'm trying to think top of my head, but, I know John Coleman's been there for a few years, but Billy Key's probably done a few years now, hasn't he, Phil?
Yeah, it's been 4 or 5 years we've had Billy Key. Yeah, there's been Sean McComber. We've had a core of players for about 4 or 5 years now, yeah.
Whereas I would say in the States, and I don't know if it'll change now with Mike Ensign in charge, but, the Roughnecks have found it difficult. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and there aren't many players that have even stayed a second season. And I would love to see much more of a sort of coherent squad year in,
You
year
really
out.
need to have that continuity.
Yes.
What's your take on the conferences and how they work? From an outsider like myself, I'm quite intrigued by, the way the leagues are laid out, set out. How do you think that works?
Well, first of all, Jake Edwards, who's the president. A quick plug for Jake, and I did manage to speak to him a couple of years ago on the phone, because he played for Burton Albion and also won Exeter City. And I sent him a picture that I found in a program of him in an Exeter shirt, and he told me, he thanked me that it was a good few years ago. But I think what he's done in his team, they brought in certainly the English system, MLS being the Premiership, and then we've got the Championship, League One, League Two. So I think it's certainly in place to bring in some form of promotion and relegation. And as you said, you guys have probably spoken about this at length. And I think that would be great. What I think we need to do is probably get teams more established first before we start doing that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, they've got to be ready once they go into the MLS. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that, and also if you started saying, okay, USL Championship teams, being relegated to League One, is somebody in League One ready to come up and step up?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing's taken off so quickly. I mean,
and you have teams like the Richmond Kickers who actually elected to drop down because they felt that they had a better chance of competing in League One. So some teams are not necessarily even wanting to get promoted.
Right, and that's another great point, isn't it? That not everybody actually wants it. So it's a very careful. I mean, I think the USL has gone from strength to strength, both on and off the field. I think everything has upped the quality of the soccer that I've seen.
Oh yeah.
And the more and more teams coming in. And it's really, really big. Even the broadcasting, I think, has got better, and they're doing a great job with that. So there's a lot of things in place. I think it's grown very, very quickly. I think it will need to settle in, and then they can start maybe looking at some form of promotion and relegation.
Okay, yeah. Going back to Exeter City, so just you might not want to answer this question, but if you had to say the standard from what you're watching at Tulsa compared to League Two, how would you work that out? Yeah, would you say?
Funny. Yeah, it's funny. I've been asked that question several times. Actually, people have asked me that. I would say, from the Tulsa Roughnecks point of view, let me answer it first of all from that. I would say we're probably talking a conference. I think if the Roughnecks played, for example, a Torquay United, I think we would see a pretty good game. Now, I think if you look at your top teams, like your Phoenix Rising, I think then certainly it would be on a par with, say, League Two. And I really don't want to down the standard, because I think there are different factors that you need to take into consideration if you are comparing. But that would be my sort of humble opinion as I see it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, watching the clips that I see and the odd games, it does look it looks like there's a lot of skillful players in the leagues. Well, very much so. They're very attacking minded, and they've got a lot of skill. Sometimes the defending is not always what you're used to seeing in Britain, I'd say. But it looks like it's evolving all the time, isn't it? Year on year. So it's only going to get stronger. And there's players from all over the world going, and coaches, and it's just going to go from strength to strength, I think.
Especially from a lot of the CONCACAF nations, like you're starting to see more and more players from places like Jamaica, where if you look at a list of the leading scorers on the teams, almost every team in the USL Championship has a player from Jamaica or Brazil or someplace in South America or Central America that's leading the league in scoring.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was going to make that very point that, some teams are losing players to international duty, and that's obviously got to be a strength. But I think also you're seeing more and more players coming over now to the States to play in the USL Championship because they've recognised it's a good league, and there is a good chance that you can be linked with an MLS club. And we've seen many a good player against the Tulsa Roughnecks, in downtown Tulsa there, who've come in and they played a very good standard. A few ex-English players as well. I know Richard Chaplow, ex-Southampton.
He's actually he's from Accrington. Excuse me.
Well, is he really?
Yeah, he's an Accrington guy. Yeah,
I think from memory, he plays for Orange County. I know Luke Rooney played, didn't he? But there's a few players knocking around as well, that have played in the USL. It's quite funny when you do your stats and you realise that actually I probably commentated on them at Exeter City, and they're now playing in against the Roughnecks in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's going from strength to strength, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that just watching the league over the past 2 or 3 years has made so many steps, because especially with the number of teams, like you said, if you go back to 2015, now 2015, the Phoenix Rising weren't even called the Phoenix Rising. They were Arizona United at the time. They were playing at a baseball stadium themselves at a time, and they've moved to a soccer-specific stadium now. And for me, I think that a big part of the progression of the league is to maybe moving to more soccer-specific stadiums. So now, with Tulsa being owned by the baseball team, I can't imagine that maybe is the first thing on the list, but is there talk about the Roughnecks eventually moving to a soccer-specific pitch?
Yeah, I can't give you too much information because I honestly don't know too much, but I know that's certainly something that everybody wants, and I think that would be certainly something I think that would be appreciated in Tulsa, because again, I still speak to people who talk about the old Roughnecks, as I said earlier on in this chat, and they say, well, I didn't even know there was a team there. Where do they play? And then you say, well, they play at the Drill Estate. Oh, yeah, I go and watch baseball there. But for some reason, they're not cottoning on to the fact that there might be some soccer played there as well.
Do you think that it would help with player retention to move away from the baseball pitch?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Drillers are a fantastic organization. They put on the best minor league baseball games. It's fun for all the family. It's a good standard. They're linked with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I know the people that run that. It's just a great organization. But I think everybody would love, connected with the Roughnecks and who support soccer in Tulsa, would love a soccer-specific stadium. And I'm sure that someone's going to come up with the money that's needed, and it'll happen one day. But it's not going to happen for a good few years, I don't think.
Well, I'd really like to see that, because I think that could be a big thing for the club in general, just like I was saying, in terms of player retention. And I think what you were saying about how you have a hard time keeping guys year after year. And I just wonder if the pitch and some of that is maybe part of that.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it has an effect. And it would be a great addition to Tulsa if as a city, if there was a soccer specific stadium there, and then of course you can bring in other teams and you can put on exhibition matches as well. It all would be great for the beautiful game, wouldn't it?
And you guys got a women's team out there that you do some commentating on also, right?
Yes, Fortuna Tulsa, run by the same gentleman that I mentioned earlier on. Very, very successful season this season. They ended up going to Minnesota to the playoffs, having had walked away with their league. I got to be the play-by-play commentator for that, which was fantastic.
Excellent.
And I know the coach Yolanda Thomas, who's just got a B license, and she's a fantastic person, ably assisted by a couple of gentlemen that I also know personally as local coaches. Really, really good. They got to play their games actually at the Drillers Stadium. It was kind of a double header. They would play in the morning, and then the Roughnecks would come and play their games in the evening. So that will only go from strength to strength. And of course, on the back of the Women's World Cup, there's a lot of young ladies that want to play soccer, and there are a lot of young ladies that play soccer already in Tulsa. So that's been really, really good for the city as well.
Well, I'm certainly going to keep looking out for Tulsa's results going forward, and Exeter's. I can't promise Arsenal because I'm not too interested in the Premier League. I've fallen out with the Premier League a little bit with the money that's swishing around, but I do watch it. I do keep an eye on it, but I'm more inclined to go towards the other divisions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan, but I would say honestly, since my dad first took me to Exeter City, that's my local club. That's the team that I'll always support. And you get to know people, don't you? So there's a couple. I'm a teacher, and a couple of my former students actually play for Exeter City, which makes it even more interesting. And one of them, actually, I'll just quickly name drop. Matt Grimes went from Exeter, and he now plays for Swansea City. And watch out for him.
That's good. Yeah,
because
I have seen
think
his
if
name,
he has Matt scored tucked away a nice penalty against Manchester City last season. And a quick story: I got to to meet up with him personally when Swansea came to play the Richmond Kickers, we were saying earlier on actually, and the North Carolina FC. And I just sort of helped out with them on their pre-season a few years ago, and that was great fun. And Matt Grimes is an Exeter boy, and one of the things about Exeter, really quickly, is they will produce some great youngsters. It's a very good youth academy. They come up through the ranks, and there's been one or two that have gone on from Exeter City. So with that kind of club, and that's why I tend to agree with you that I like the more grassroots, the lower local teams than I do the Premiership. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it makes three of us because I mean, there's just so much more passion, and we like to say that the lower leagues, what you see is proper football.
Yeah, absolutely. And my good friends down at Torquay United, they've been hanging in there for years now, and I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Netflix, but about the infamous Jim McNichol, the player that was bitten by the dog. I don't know if you haven't seen it, go and see it.
I've seen that.
I'll have to take a look at that one.
Yeah,
it's well worth a look, that film.
It is, and it's a totally true story, and it's dear old Playmore, and I was there yesterday. It's just where you get the best stories and things come out of it. And Torquay survived because that player Jim McNichol, who later finished his career with Exeter City, it's just great stories, isn't it? And that's why we love the lower league so much.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is when you do see that player that you started watching and they're playing in League One or League Two, and then one day you see him on NBC here playing in the Premier League, and it's very similar to like you're saying with the drillers, and they'll have somebody, and then a couple years later you'll see him hopefully playing for somebody besides the Dodgers. But
Right, exactly. No, it's right, and that's where it all starts, and we mustn't ever forget that. So so watch out for Matt Grimes.
Right,
Swansea City.
maybe
he has a good season this season. Yeah, I'm sure he'd come on the show.
Guest on the show. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'm sure he would. And he's got his head on his shoulders. He's a good lad, and I think if he has a good season this season for Swansea, if they don't go up to the Premiership, then there could be a few Premiership teams got their eye on him. He's a good player. Yeah.
Excellent.
Good stuff.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us here and taking some time, Dave. Did you have anything else that you wanted to tell the listeners, maybe about the Roughnecks or about Exeter or just in general?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything, haven't we?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I think it'd be great if I mean, it probably comes down to money, but wouldn't it be great to see the likes of an Exeter or an Accrington coming and doing what Cardiff have just been down and played San Antonio FC, and wouldn't it be great if a couple of those teams could come over and play, but maybe
it's
they
Phil's
will in the
dream.
future.
It's Phil's dream.
It really is.
Accrington to come to Arizona.
Right.
Yeah, I think Phoenix Rising versus Accrington Stanley would be a cracker of a match. I think it would really be a genuinely competitive match that, not just one of those friendlies. I think those are two teams that it would really square up well.
Our management team at Accrington, they don't really do friendlies. They're that competitive. They want to win a game of tiddlywinks. So, right. It'd be competitive, no doubt.
Yeah. That'll be fun in the future, maybe.
Yeah, we're really, really hoping so. And if you come to town next year when Tulsa comes, we'll have to maybe get a beer before the game or something.
I really want to do it. Honestly, I do. I want to do some of these away trips. So a few years ago, I did get to. Jeremy Poplin does play-by-play. He also does the local Tulsa TU football. And so when that comes in, I was asked to do a few games, and I went on the road with the boys. But sort of more, I think, Real Monarchs. I did. They're in Salt Lake City, but didn't get any further west than that with them. Went down south to San Antonio. So I would love to come out and see Phoenix Rising sometime. That'd be great.
It would really be great to have you in town. And one thing I did want to make sure that I ask you to mention, because this will be something that everybody in Phoenix is going to want you to mention to Jeremy, and that would be that Solomon Asante is the guy that plays for the Phoenix Rising, and Asante Samuel used to play cornerback in the NFL.
Oh, really? Really?
Oh,
Wow.
he had a thing going in the first half where he accidentally was calling Solomon Asante Samuel, and eventually about halfway through the broadcast he caught himself. But the Phoenix fans were really letting him have it on Twitter last night.
They need you back.
I haven't spoken to him.
I
haven't spoken to him yet. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's he does do a thoroughly good job. But yeah, I understand totally. Yeah.
Oh no, it's all in good fun. But I think that the people here in Phoenix would probably have my head if I didn't mention it. So
right. Okay. Brilliant. Okay.
Good stuff.
We really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do it again. Maybe check in with you here at the end of the season, or maybe check in with you when Exeter's making their playoff run.
Well, that would be nice. Followed by, of course, I'll be looking out more for Accrington's results and as well. Now, everybody knows Accrington Stanley, of course.
Yeah,
the old commercial with the milk.
Yeah. You never know. We may draw Exeter and Accrington in the FA Cup. You never know, do you?
That would be nice.
That'd be fun.
That'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be fun. No, it's good to speak to you guys. It's a beautiful game, isn't it?
It really is.
Great. Wherever we are.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
All right. We'll speak soon.
Yeah, speak soon, and we will do that Exeter Team of the Month here before the end of the year, and I'll get in touch with you before we do that.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Dave.